Well, Lewis Giordano, thank you very much, firstly and foremost, for coming on to speak with us. Your insight into what we're going to talk about with you is, I think it's one of them things that it interests me because I'm a fan of human biology, but it's also a very strong and big talking point in the sport. I think that people don't really respect weight management and how to look after your body as they should. And obviously, you are a how would you like to describe your role? How would you word it?
Weight management specialist is my title when referring to the whole weight cutting and making weight and that area. So weight management specialist.
I like that. I like the way you've put that. It's a nice one. Now, it is huge. The weight cutting factor in MMA. The fact that fighters do cut a lot of weight. Some guys get it wrong. There's guys that have went to hospital. And there's people that just aren't educated enough in that field of the sport. So what's your take on the way guys are looking after their body anyway?
I think it's one of those things that's dramatically overlooked, and a lot of fans and even fighters and coaches, I think it's overlooked because so much goes into the actual fight itself. But you have to remember that in order for the fight to happen, you have to make weight. And in order for the fight to be exciting, you also have to be healthy and be able to fight. And so many people just overlook it because they think, oh, you just step on the scale, you make weight, and all is done. You drink some protein shakes and some fruit, and you're good. But there's so much more that goes into it, but it's definitely overlooked.
Yeah, I've noticed that a couple of guys, that have missed weight. I think the best one for me recently, the one that stands out, is probably Kelvin Gastelum. He has a real issue with keeping that weight down to get to 170, even though he wants to be 170. That's all he wants to fight at. If he wants it that bad, well, I'm not being funny. How can you not keep getting that? How can you not get down to that weight class? That's what bewilders me. I'm thinking, just eat. You're telling me you can't eat a salad rather than a pizza.
He talks the.
He talks the game, but he's not putting it into effect. And things like that frustrate me because I think you can make the weight. It is possible to be to diet right and look after your body right. Or do you think that fighters who do struggle like that should just accept that they shouldn't be going down to that weight class?
I think it's a few things, and here's an interesting fact. I'm not sure about the UK, but I know here in the US, obesity and coronary heart disease. Coronary heart disease is the number one cause of death in America, which means that there are more than just a handful of fighters who get it wrong when it comes to just overall being healthy all year round. A lot of the fighters, they the off season. Very few are actually very dedicated to eating healthy and training all year round. So I think it's a bigger picture, whereas there is a lot of other people who struggle. I get that I understand that they're not fighting or they're not competing in quote unquote professional, but there are a lot of doctors who are out of shape. So it's one of those things that's just easily overlooked. You absolutely can make the weight, and it just takes the right person, the right education, and the right understanding. It'd be like trying to watch a movie in a different language. You have no idea what's being said, but if you had some subtitles, then you can make sense of it. So I think a lot of these guys are just following, those old wives' tales or old school wrestler mentalities, and that's getting them into trouble.
It is. I think one of the other things for me I found, it's not just the person's fault. I think society's fault as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It is. It's the way the image is perceived on the way you eat certain foods. For example, the best one to use I think would be someone like Coca-Cola, where the amount, I think it's 9.5 spoonfuls of sugar, tablespoons I think it is, of sugar in a can of cola. It's a huge amount of sugar to have in your body, and it's too much than you should have. I think
you've only got to look at kids, haven't you?
Well, that's the thing. The image they put of Coca-Cola, especially around because come up to Christmas time, would be a good time to use it. Is that the red truck that drives around, and
absolutely. Even that, there's a misconception though. Check this out. If let's say you and I, you said you like to train as well, and the guys who do like to train, they've always been put into some really tough workouts. So we all know what it feels like to be exhausted. So let's say you and I go and roll for 3 hours straight. We didn't have anything to drink. We just rolled for 3 hours and busted our butt, and we're sweating. Here's reality. After we're done, if you have a choice to drink a glass of water, which we are about 65% water. Water is very, very healthy. We need water to survive, to live. if you had a choice to drink a glass of water or a glass of soda, at that point, when you are done rolling for 3 hours, you will do your body better by actually having the soda with the sugar, because you just flew through all of your glycogen sugar to get you through that workout, that you'd actually benefit from having a little bit of that sugar after you exercise. But if you're just sitting around on the couch watching TV, not working out, then obviously you'd want to stay away from that. But that's the problem, is society does this amazing thing, and they've done it, for thousands of years, where they just have a warped perception of reality, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I can actually relate to this firsthand. A few years back, I did a half marathon, and it was shortly after I started having some sugar issues. So this was my first half marathon, and for the whole race, I took a sugar-free drink with me, and I avoided all the jelly beans and jelly babies on the route round. And from about mile 8, my brain wasn't there. I don't know. I was on autopilot. Apparently, they were asking me if I was all right, and I was answering them. But I have no memory. I have memories of flashes of it. And they literally, I finished the race, and they put me in the ambulance and took me to hospital. And I was on about 1.5, I think, my blood sugars, which is not very good.
Next to nothing. I mean, they drop so low, and people, again, they get that confused. Whereas, that you're told, we're told so much. Don't drink this, don't eat this, it's bad for you. Here's one of the things I like to say that I've learned from the people who, I still talk to and help educate me as well, is there's no such thing as bad food. And I did a seminar a few weeks ago, and I started with that, and everybody looked at me like, wait a second. They're looking at the pamphlet like, are we at the right place? And I said, well, I asked somebody, I said, hey, give me an example of a bad food. So I ask you guys, give me an example of a bad food. What would be a bad food, in your opinion?
Kebab. Kebab meat.
Celery.
I don't know.
Celery. I can't stand it.
Yeah, salads. No, I don't know if you get kebabs in the US.
So not bad tasting. How about bad food that you think is bad for you?
You could say a McDonald's or something like that.
I'd say a KFC bucket. Like KFC.
All right, so perfect. Check this out. So KFC, deep fried chicken, and macaroni and cheese. Those two things are terrible for you. So now we're on an island and we're starving. It takes about 3 weeks. You can go about 3 weeks without having any food. So we're right on the cusp of that third week, and we're about to die from starvation. All of a sudden, Colonel Sanders shows up with a bucket of his chicken and macaroni and cheese and says, here you go, guys, I have some KFC for you. You're not going to look at him and go, no, that's bad for me. That's going to save your life at that point. So there's no such thing as bad food. Yes, there are foods that are technically better for you, but there's no such thing as bad food, because that at that time will save your life. Again, back to the Coca-Cola. At that time, that Coca-Cola will be good for you, but sitting on a couch drinking it, watching TV is not. So that's the perception that I try to relate to all my clients and everybody that I speak to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'd let you into a secret. If Colonel Sanders turns up, not only would I eat his chicken, I'd get him to fry you.
Exactly. Forget about the bigger issue that Colonel Sanders just happened to show up. Now we have a bucket of fried chicken and macaroni and cheese. So there's a few issues going on, but the point is that you're not going to say, no, magical man, I'm not going to have that. It's going to save your life,
Yeah, and
like
it's
those jelly beans, and when you went on your race, sugar would have definitely helped you throughout that entire thing.
Yeah, I think so. I tell you what, it was. I can actually remember coming round from it, and cracky, it was weird. I mean, I'm teetotal. I don't take any drugs. I don't drink or anything. And I tell you what, it was the weirdest environment I've ever been in my life. I think it's
very strange. You feel very strange. It happened to me a few times, and it's one time after wrestling practice, and then one time I went for a hike with my uncle, cousin, and a friend of ours, and the friend, was leading the way, and, he was a very, very proud, very high ego, and did not want to look at the map. Needless to say, we got lost for about 5.5 hours. We had very little water to no water at this point. It was so bad that by the time we got to the street, we realized we were still about 2 hours walking distance to our car. We had to call the park ranger to come and get us. And the reason I tell this story is because once the park ranger came and got us, once we got our car, the first thing we did was go to a convenience store. Now, I could walk into a convenience store and I could have gotten water, I could have gotten a piece of fruit, all these quote-unquote healthy foods. My body was so zapped of energy, sugar, everything that I went right over to the Slurpee machine, and I'm pouring, a Coca-Cola Slurpee, slushy, whatever, in my cup. And as I'm doing that, I'm realizing, wait, this is like ice. This is really cold. How am I going to get this? My body just needed the sugar, so I was mixing the soda and the ice, and I was just drinking it. I needed sugar at that point. Your body starts to shut down.
Well, I mean, I'm ex-military, and I can remember some of the Bergen runs that we used to do in the military, and you'd be doing, like, say, I don't know, 10, 12 miles sometimes, anything from 8 to sort of 12, maybe even further, I don't know. Sometimes I don't think even the instructors knew how far we were going, but it was a hell of a long time we were going out for. And I would say to people, yeah, you'd eat, say, 6 to 10 Mars bars, and they'd be like, what? That'd kill you, wouldn't it? And I said, no, because it's that... And literally, with every bite, you could feel like your
energy levels go up, yeah.
Yeah, and you'd get that.
Absolutely.
Forget eating sandwiches and salads at that point. It was literally.
I was training. Yeah, I was training with the Royal Marines, and it was the case of I was eating easily 5,500 calories a day. And it was anything from sweets to porridge to anything good to anything naughty. And I lost weight. I lost about a stone in weight just because of the amount of energy I was burning. But the thing was, because you would eat anything that was to get your hands on, you'd eat it.
I mean, the way I describe it to people is you've got to have enough fuel for the trip.
Yeah.
You don't go on a drive.
There you go. Exactly. And speaking of that, think of it like this. And I love the fuel is something that I always say. One of my mottos is that food is fuel for the body, not comfort for the mind. People like to look at food as comfort food. I don't like that at all. No, it's fuel for the body. So if you take a fire, if you set a fire outside, there are so many things you could throw into that fire that will burn. Some things are going to burn faster. Some things are going to take longer to burn. Well, food is the same way. It's still going to burn. So it doesn't matter what you throw into that fire. It just matters as far as how effective is it. Is it going to be short or is it going to be long-lasting? But when you're flying through calories like that, at that point it almost doesn't matter. It's just about getting calories back in. That's what matters most, And people get hung up on it so much that it's really not about that.
Yeah, it is.
I also used to do some like crazy bike races and stuff like that, and now I've got to get this the right way around, and hopefully you'll correct me if I am wrong, but you'll know what I mean. Like, if your protein dips below a certain amount, it will nick it from your carbohydrate. Am I right? And so your energy level never seems to go up.
In a way, yes. So this is what happens. So our muscles are 70% water, and they're also loaded with glycogen as well, sugar. Carbohydrate is the number one fuel source for your body. Whether you're sitting, running, jumping, training, sleeping, doesn't matter. Your body is burning calories. Obviously, the more activity you're doing, the more calories you're burning. Majority of the calories you burn throughout the day, your body will use carbohydrates and sugar. Depending on your level of activity and depending on your fitness level, your body will actually switch from the carbohydrates to fat and actually start to use fat for fuel. Now, protein technically is labeled as a fuel source, but it goes right to the muscle. Now, if your fat cells or you're draining your body of the carbohydrates and you're not replenishing it, they'll actually start to take the glycogen, the sugar that's in the muscle, pull it from there, and then the muscle will actually start to break down. So you were right. It just kind of flipped it around a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I always seem to get it the wrong way around. But I remember doing a race once, and even though I was taking the energy, there was something else was nicking it. So I never seemed to get my energy back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because I think
that's what a lot of these fighters do. That's what they do. It's like if I have a bucket that I want to save money, I want to put money into this bucket, but the bucket has a hole in it. So I'm saving all this money, I'm putting it in the bucket. So I'm not spending it, I'm not getting the money, but then I go to look for the bucket and the bucket has a hole in it. So what did I really just do? I saved my money technically, but I don't even have it anymore. So that's what ends up happening with exercise a lot.
And we'll talk then now about recent comments that you made in relation to BJ Penn and Mr. Hendricks. About, obviously, you said about how you can get their weights down and stuff. With Johnny Hendricks, though, I feel that he is literally he's a downfall. He's the downfall himself. He does it himself.
Just Nicky's barbecue invites.
He literally will just. He's a prime example of binge eating. He's a prime example of when he's not having a fight on, he will binge and he binges. And what I like to look, we've spoke about him before, is he's like the Ricky Hatton of MMA. Ricky Hatton, obviously British boxer, he would balloon over his weight class, and he would eat everything, and then he had to cut
well over 12 stone, and he was fighting at 10.
He was cutting, and he would then have to come back down again. And it was one of them ones where you think he could have had a better career, he could have prolonged his career if he just looked after himself a bit more. And with Johnny Hendricks, I really feel he's doing himself no favours.
Well, yeah.
I agree with you. And here's the thing. For me, it always comes down to perception, right? Again, the internet. Everybody has access to the internet, so anybody could Google how to lose weight, healthy foods, and all these things. And what's crazy is we have access to basically an encyclopedia of wealth on the internet. Yet again, the number one cause of death in America is coronary heart disease. Everybody, most of the people are overweight, obese, and all that stuff. So with that being said, then for me, it has to come down to perception. I was actually talking to, one of the guys I worked with was Eddie Gordon. Eddie Gordon was a heavyweight,
Yeah.
And I was talking to his manager, Jason Rivera, and I've been working with Jason as well. And we were talking about this after the article came out, and Jason was saying to me, "Ooh, but he eats barbecue." Same thing you guys are saying. All that stuff is public knowledge, and anybody understands that when you talk about Johnny Hendricks, he likes to eat certain foods and so on and so on. And I stopped him. I said, "Jason," I said, "Eddie was the same way, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, well, he's 190 pounds with abs for the past 6 months." I said, "You were the same way too, weren't you? Now you're down 30 pounds, and you haven't even started really exercising yet." He goes, "You're right." I said, "That's because I got my hands on you. Because I changed your perception. I don't take credit for anything that I do. I'm just a voice. That's all. And what I say is that my goal is to change your perception of what it is that you're doing. Once you change the perception, then you can yield a completely different result. So I think for a guy like Johnny Hendricks and BJ Penn as well, I think that their perceptions of themselves and their perceptions of food has to change. Again, Eddie is a guy who fought at middleweight, and he would walk around at 230 pounds. One of his last fights, he was 220-something pounds. He cut 20 pounds in 24 hours to make weight. That's how he did things. When I worked with him, he didn't cut any weight. We ate the night before weigh-ins. We ate breakfast and had a shake the day of weigh-ins. And like I said, it's been a few months now after his fight. He's still 195 pounds because now we're making the transition down to welterweight, 170 pounds. So I understand that, but again, it's perception. So if they change their perception, then maybe they could actually change the result of what's happening as well.
So with Eddie then, are you going to get him down further walking weight? Because like I say, he's 195 now. Are you going to get his walking weight down a bit lower than that to be the 170?
Yeah, so for me, the way that I like to do things is again, I don't like to be the guy that gets called in 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out. I've done that a few times actually, and recently. And again, it's just not my style because I want to take my time with my guys. So I like the guys to walk around no more than 15 pounds above their weight class, maximum 15 pounds. So for Eddie, the walk around weight should be about 185. And what we do at that point is get his body accustomed to being there. And then, again, a big misconception is that strength has no effect on size. So I can actually make Eddie or whoever I'm working with feel stronger than they did while being lighter. Like one of the guys I'm working with now, Aljamain, he's got a fight coming up on December 10th. Same thing. He's a guy who fights at bantamweight, but was walking around at, up to about 160. And when we first talked, that was his concern, was his strength. But now he's feeling stronger, lighter, so there's ways of doing that. So I like about 15 pounds above their actual weight class. All year round, actually.
Yeah, well, we had Aljamain on. We spoke to him the other day as well, and he did mention about the weight and obviously shifting down the weight class. Not the weight class, his walking weight down. And yeah, you said about the 15 pounds. See, I recently ventured down to welterweight myself, but I didn't do it I'll rephrase that. I got my walking weight down when I first made the decision to get down to welterweight, which is 170. I was walking around about 205, between 205 and 210. 210, sorry. So I decided to get my walking weight down to a more manageable weight. So I did. I got my weight down to about 190, just around there. And what I ended up doing was 2 weeks before the fight, in the build up to the weight cut the day before, the weigh-ins, I lost about 10 pounds in about 12 days. And then the day before the weigh-ins, I'd cut the final 10 pounds of just literally doing, the water loading and then just cut a load of fluids out.
Right.
Now, I'll admit, it wrecked me. The last fight I had, I probably shouldn't have medically fought in my last fight. I had cramps I've never had cramps like that before. My hands were cramping up when I tried to grab food. I was actually sick 3 times,
Absolutely.
but my whole body cramped up. My ribs were just in bits from the erection from being sick. My whole body just literally shut down on me. I probably would have been sent to hospital. But I wasn't saying no to the fight kind of thing. It's that stubborn attitude. But I've learned that I probably need to get my weight down lower. You see, as well, from instead of being 190 before I start doing the cut, I should probably get my weight down even to, like you say, 185 or even 180.
Absolutely, because again, here's what happens. Like you just said. I mean, I don't even have to reiterate what you said. It's perfect. There are so many quote unquote techniques to cutting this weight, water loading and saunas, bathtubs, all these things, all these crazy things. But if you can get your walk around weight to be comfortable at about 10 to 15 pounds more, and just focus on your strength, speed, and agility, because there are ways to do that. Okay, while also complementing the food that you're putting into your body, so that way when you get closer to the fight, all you're going to do is manage your weight a little bit lower, so that you never really miss a meal or miss any water. And again, your strength can continue to go up. A lot of the guys think that they have to walk around much bigger because they're going to have the advantage. Well, at the end of the day, we both step on the scale at the same weight. It doesn't matter if I am that weight already and you cut 70 pounds. We both stepped on that scale the same weight. And in 24 hours, it is physically impossible to increase significant lean muscle mass or strength in 24 hours. So all that weight you put on, you just added mass and basic physics. More mass equals slower speed. There's a reason Floyd, Mayweather only gains a pound when he goes into a fight, and he barely gets hit. So whether you're a fan or not, you have to look at the actual facts. People don't like to look at facts.
We mentioned, we were speaking to a gentleman, Jose Torres, and Frankie Edgar is a great example of the weight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
He was 155 champ, and he was hardly even. I think he just went to the toilet to cut weight. It's that
spat on the floor and stepped on the scales.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrestle with Frankie. We're from the same region. We graduated the same year. He wrestled at 130, 135, and I was a little bit heavier. So I know Frankie for quite some time, and even back then, he just never cut weight. He was just always in good shape. And like you said, there's something to be said about the guys that just walk around healthy all year round. Forget about the actual fight itself. Like I tell my clients, just my regular clients, I don't eat healthy and exercise now so that I can look good. Yeah, don't get me wrong, that's a piece of it. But I want to take care of myself now so that, God willing, I can run around with my grandchildren. Forget about kids, my grandchildren. So let's look at the longevity of yourself. If you take care of yourself now all year round, you're just going to be overall healthier as you get older. It's like anything else. We don't see the damage that we're doing to ourselves now, but in 10 years, you could bet that you're going to definitely feel the repercussions for it, And that's why I say what I say and I do what I do, because the bottom line is the safety of the fighters,
And that's the key, the safety of the fighters. That was my next kind of question to you, really, would be, it is accessible. Information is accessible online. You can look at how to look after yourself, how to cut weight. But the thing is, there's not one way to do it. There's many ways to do it. And many fighters maybe they pick the wrong way. But it's a lesson. They sometimes have to learn a lesson. They have to make a mistake and then they go a different direction. And I think the key for the sport is, the weight cutting issue. The safety of it, and how would you suggest it's managed? Because not everyone has the accessibility that other fighters possibly do, or the contacts even.
Well, and that's a great question, and it's a frustrating one in a sense because I've always been the type of person I just want to help people. That's why I got into the industry, and I got into the industry because I come from a heavy family, and at a young age, I looked at that and I wanted to help them. And then when I went to school, I realized, wow, there's a lot more people who suffer like this, and so forth and so on. So now diving into the whole weight management for the fighters and everything else like that, I genuinely empathize and feel bad for all these guys. I've been contacted, I'm not going to mention names, but I've been contacted by several different fighters, both in and outside the UFC, who are very quick to say, I cannot afford A, B, and C. And I just give them information over the phone because I just want to help. I don't need them to promote my name, and I'm not out here promoting their name. I just want people to be healthy and safe, and that's my goal in this sport, in this industry. I will continue to do what I do, and I will continue to be an open book about it. I don't need to keep things a secret. Oh, well, you want to learn? Buy this, buy that. No, I'm just going to give you some good advice, and that's the way I feel it should be, because we have a responsibility to take care of people, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, it is a hard one to touch, really, because there isn't one set rule. Like you said, you give advice. That's the thing. You don't tell them you have to do this, you have to do that. It's more of a set. It's more like common sense. I suppose you could say you're giving them.
I think the word moderation gets forgotten too often.
Oh, it drastically gets forgotten, and it's one of those things that is very important because quality of life also has to play a part here. I'm not saying that you should eat, don't eat foods that you enjoy. And I feel that's why my program is so successful, is because it's not about restricting and being on a quote-unquote diet. It's about being realistic in an unrealistic environment. And like you said, I don't ever tell anybody, do this, don't do that. No, my way is this. I'm going to say, okay, here's what I think. And I'm going to explain why I feel that way. And I'm going to support it with some facts. Then I'm going to give you some logic as to why I feel that way. And then I'm going to allow you to make the educated decision to say, oh, wow, you know what, that actually does make sense. So now what I want you to do is try it. Once you try it and your body feels better, well, then guess what? We just answered our own question. Did I really answer it for you? No, all I did was just show you the map. You actually started to look at it, dissect it, and figure it out on your own. That's why I feel my program is very different than anybody else's, because every other program is telling you this is how it is. No, it's more of the mixed martial arts, no pun intended, but the mixed side of things versus, jiu-jitsu beats taekwondo. No, it's the guy who's versed in everything is the most skilled. So,
I was going to say,
meal planning and nutrition should be the same way.
Well, it's like some of those times in the army, on some of those endurance marches and that, a salad would have put me in hospital, whereas a Mars bar would save my life.
100%. That's what's crazy is people don't understand the and it comes down to perception. Oh, that's a candy bar. No, that's going to save your life right now. It's going to save your life. But you have all these quote unquote fitness experts who have this, who have society's ear because they're being paid to tell people what they want to hear, as opposed to just being honest about things. It's sad because honesty doesn't sell sometimes. But guess what? When the house is built on lies, the truth is going to destroy it. And that's what's going to happen.
One thing I thought I'd talk about then is there's the IV ban that's come into place. Do you think that, I wouldn't say do you think it's good or bad, but do you think the IV ban in a way will then, I don't say force, but will make fighters then go, I do need to speak to someone like yourself and maybe say, right, because I want to stay in that weight class, but I am, I use an IV because I literally just dropped way too much in water the day before and I can't be arsed basically doing the weight management. Do you think this will force guys to, if they want to stay in that weight class, not have to go up one? Do you think it's a good way to maybe make them look at sports nutrition in a way?
Yes, 100%. And when that article first came out, the first one I read, I believe, was on Bloody Elbow. And there were a few, two of the other guys in the industry, I guess, who do what I do, were very vocal about their views. And then I decided to be vocal about mine. And what I said was this, that it's going to do two things. The first thing it's going to do is it's absolutely going to force guys to go up in weight. because guys are going to be nervous that they can't use the IV to refuel, rehydrate. They're going to get scared, and they're going to go up in weight. The other thing it's going to do, and this is what I was very vocal about, is at some point it's going to force guys to seek out other areas of health, people such as myself, who is standing there saying there is a different way of doing this and a healthier way of doing this, and you can make the same weight class that you were in, but also be healthier without the use of IV. And what's going to happen is when you have guys that are making weight healthy, let's just say we lived in a perfect world where everybody was 100% fully hydrated. Forget weight classes. But everybody was 100% fully hydrated. And when you paired people up to fight, no matter who you picked, obviously, they're in the, all right, you need the weight class, so they're in the same weight class, but they're fully hydrated. Don't you think that you're going to get a better fight, a more entertaining fight, and for me, a safer fight? Because the risk of injury now goes down because the guys are fully hydrated both mentally and physically. So that's why I was so adamant about it, because that's what I feel it's going to force people to do, and that's why I've been so vocal about it. While you have the other guys being vocal that it's the bad thing and guys are going to die, like, all right, let's just scare more people into going up in weight classes than actually seeking other help and getting healthier.
Yeah,
but I was going to say exactly, because a lot of the when I say injuries, I'm not talking about broken bones, etc. I'm talking about deaths, etc. They're linked. People are now linking them to the weight cutting.
Boxing is the best example to use.
Exactly, like find me a heavyweight that died after a fight.
And they hit the hardest.
Do you know what I mean?
They're the biggest guys who hit the hardest.
Yeah, and
that's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point.
Because in boxing, the low weight classes in boxing, that's where the statistics were the best ones are. I think the more deaths related to the guys in the low weight because they're cutting weight, but the heavyweights.
I think what really showed it was, do you remember the Brazilian that died a few years ago whilst cutting weight? He hadn't even got into the cage, and the poor chap died due to weight cutting, and literally that didn't take a strike.
Why isn't there more press on that to let people know? It's so frustrating because it really, like I said in the beginning, is it's one of those things that's overlooked. For whatever reason, making weight's like the smallest piece, but it's really, in my opinion, the biggest piece.
Yeah.
And you have a guy like that passes away because he's cutting weight. Well, why aren't we talking about that more to say to these? Because now you have these young kids. I actually this college wrestler reached out to me on Instagram. I've never met him before, never talked to him before, but I guess he heard one of my interviews. He reached out to me, and I called him. We were on the phone yesterday, and he's telling me here's a 19-year-old kid who read all these other books, and he's cutting weight and doing all these water loading things, and I'm just like shaking my head. Like, this is what's scary is that you have all these younger kids following the older kids, and nobody's talking about really how dangerous this is until now. Like, I think it needs more coverage.
It does.
It's dangerous even without the fight.
I believe that with
100%.
especially with wrestling as well, that a lot of grapplers, people who do wrestling when they're in high school, their growth is very much impeded because of the severe weight cuts that they do, and also they don't do it in the right way. They cut by just drinking maybe milkshakes for the week and stuff. They're not getting the right nutrients in at the key time of their life, of their growth, and it's crazy to think that.
It's crazy. It is. Listen, I graduated high school in 2000, and my senior year I came in weighing about 225 pounds, and I wrestled 171. And I didn't know anything about really health and fitness, too much at the time. I have an older brother, but, showed me a little bit, but nothing crazy. So because my junior year, my parents actually, got me a trainer, and he helped me a little bit. I was like, when I was working with him, this was easy. And see, that's the problem. When guys make weight once or twice, as we get older, we all know that things don't get any easier as we get older. So I come into the season about 225 pounds. And my school, I'm sure all the schools do this. I hope that they do. But what they do is you have like a physical from the trainer at the school, and they check your body fat. And based off of that, they tell you how much weight you could actually cut. So I was like, oh no, I gotta lose 20 pounds before I even start the season, because if she checks me now, there's no way she's gonna let me cut all the way to 70. So for 2 weeks, the only thing I did, I had 3 6-ounce canned shakes. They were actually in a can. I couldn't even tell you what they were called because it was so long ago. I drank 3 of those. That's it. Barely any water for 2 weeks, and I wrestled and trained. One day I'm at home. I had a mat in my basement. I'm rolling with my brother. I get out of the shower. He looks at me. You know, I'm in my room. He looks at me. He's like, "What's wrong with you?" And boom, I collapsed. They had to call 911. They called the ambulance. I got rushed to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on. You know, it's because of what I was doing. And there was no real advice back then. And again, that's what's so frustrating is that they're still doing the same thing. That's what, you know, is driving me nuts, is that they're still professionals, trained professionals are still doing the same thing that I was doing, you know, in Freehold, New Jersey 15 years ago. You know, it's crazy.
I was just about to ask yourself, like, how many more people need to die before...
Or go to hospital, or even just collapse and go to hospital.
You know, before it changes, because it seems like we know, and we're not scientists. No. You know, it's like
we know it's very interesting.
I'm not. By the way, I'm not talking about yourself here. I'm talking about myself and John. We're not geniuses, but we know that there is a science to this. Yeah, you know, there is ways of finding out more. But it seems a lot of people leave that on the shelf, and
a lot of people, I think, expect it just to fall on their lap as well, which is what's frustrating. I think that, again, that comes down to society and the way people get brought up these days. They expect everything just to fall on their lap, and you think, do you know what? It's not that hard to find, though. It really isn't.
But what I believe is...
No, like I said, you have Google. You could Google search anything. The problem is nobody puts it into play. You know, and nobody, you know, does it. And I found this out. That when you think about exercise, and I relate this even to the professional athletes, because I've worked with, you know, people who play professional football and college athletes as well. And what I found is this, that it comes down to 3 words. This is what separates everybody. You have a want, have, and need. Those 3 words are very, very strong desires. Want, have, and need. So if I were to ask you, either one of you or both, when you think about fitness, when you think about training, when you think about overall health for yourself, do you do it because you want to do it, have to do it, or need to do it? Now, you only can pick one, so which one would you pick? Both of you. Which one would you pick?
Oh, right, let me have... Want, have, or need? Okay.
Yes. When you look at health and fitness and competing, you know, do you want to be healthy and fit because you want to, have to, need to?
I have to.
You have to, okay.
I'll pick have to.
I'll pick want to.
But you can't.
Yeah. You want to.
But Mike's not able to. Mike's not able to train. He's got limitations.
I buggered myself up in the army, and in fact, I'm actually on the brink of losing my legs at the moment. But you know, I'm hoping that once they go, I can do things again.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why you will, because of what you said. Check this out. It's a fun little thing I like to do with my clients. Want, have, need. You said want and then have to, right? So have and want. So here's what's crazy. When you break the 3 down, I want to do something, I have to do something, I need to do something. I'm going to use a few sentences. I have to do my homework, but I want to play this video game. So what do you think I'm going to end up doing?
Play the video game because you want to. It's selfishness.
Exactly. I have to pay this bill, but I want to buy those sneakers. Oh, I have to go to work. I need to go to my in-laws. I want to go to work. I want to go to my in-laws. The desire to want trumps the other 2. People hurdle what they need to get what they want. So what you have to do is when you create a want, and this is why I said you will absolutely do it, because you said, you know what, I want to do it. And then once that is taken care of, and you'll be able to do stuff again, nothing will stop you because you want to do it. You know, I had asked a client of mine who has a child, I said, let me ask you a question. You take care of your kid, right? He goes, absolutely. I said, well, do you do it because you have to, need to, or want to? He goes, well, I have to. I said, no, you don't. Let's be honest. You don't have to take care of him. He goes, you're right. I want to do it. That's right. And nothing will stand in your way. You want to know why? Because you want to do it.
Yeah.
So I think deep down inside, not that I know deep down inside, these guys who are struggling to make weight or struggling, they don't want to do it. Once you create a want, like Eddie has created such a want, that he will never go above 200 pounds again because he wants to do it now. That's the difference, and that's what separates.
Yeah, it's like the races and that I used to do. I had to get to the point where I mean, I got my injuries when I was 20 stroke 21. I savagely broke my legs, both of my legs, and carried on breaking them there for years and years after. And I mean, we're talking hundreds of breaks, you know, and.
Wow.
We call him Mr. Glass.
Yeah, it's I've got a few issues, shall we say? But I like to do these like endurance things, you know, to sort of say to myself, I can still do these things even though I'm disabled. And it got to the point where the doctors turned around and said, "Don't do anything else. Stop. Don't, you know." I tell everyone that comes in here to do stuff. Yeah. You stop. You know.
You have to stop.
And now it's a case of I now know I can't do anything else. So now I've said to me, you know, okay, if the legs came off, maybe I can then start doing things. So I've already priced things up. Like, okay, how much will it cost to get running blades? You know, and I'm researching about can you cycle with
flipper? Get flippers. I told you to get a flipper. I want him to be a mermaid.
Yeah. But I mean,
you sound like a great friend. I love it.
Yeah.
I've got to mock him.
He's much help as putting snow on a fire.
You're not a friend unless you do that. You know, you have to. Absolutely. Me and my friends, we abuse each other. You have to.
Oh yeah. But like when they get chopped off, I'm going to put little shoes on the bottom of his feet as well. I'm going to have to do it and get a picture and all sorts. I mean, he's going to be great for Christmas as well. Santa's little helper.
Yeah. I tell you what, all it will do is make me shorter, which will make it easier for me to hit him in the bollocks. That's all I know.
He can headbutt me. No, but the thing, like we said about
the desire and the want is already there. Exactly. All I need to do is wait for him to go now. And okay, yeah, I know there's going to be some issues and what have you, and a bit of rehab time, but yeah, you know, I know the desire's there, and I've already been like, you know, like thinking to myself, like, how long will it take before I can get on that start line again and, you know,
get going again? And
so, yeah, you know, I know I can
because
do it.
Of that mindset, and more people, I wish more people had that mindset. It's because people try to look at, you know, I want to, you know, do something with my body. I want to change my body. No. Train your mind first. Sharpen your mind, and your mind will actually learn how to cut your muscle up in a good way. You know, you have such a strong mind that whether you have both legs, no legs, or 30 legs, I guarantee, I've never met you, but just by listening to you, I guarantee you that you will not stop moving forward because of that mindset that you have. You know, and people need, unfortunately, I think we need more of that. You know, I was misdiagnosed by doctors for many years and spoon-fed medicine for many years by these so-called professionals, Ivy League doctors, degrees from all over the place, medicine. And it was the most frustrating process, but the one thing I never did was allow my mind to get, you know, infected like my body was at the time. And that's why I'm where I am now, because the mind is what's more important, you know, and just keep that mindset. And like I said, man, whether you have no legs or 10, nothing's going to stop you, I'll tell you that much. And I got nothing but respect for you.
That great point you made about the want, having, need, you know, even just you saying that then kind of made me think about, you know, we do this podcast and we've got you on now, and it's great because we need, for example, someone like you speaking and explaining this, because we want, for example, we want people to listen. You know, we need people to listen to this and take it on board, and that's why, for example, me and Mike, we want to do the podcast that we do because we want people to hear it. And we get, for example, you talked about the mind. We had a gentleman on the other week called Rob Dawson, who's a mind sport. He's a mind strength. That's what he calls himself, mind strength. Not a sports psychologist. He's a strength conditioning for the mind. That's what he does. And we got him on because he needs to be on. We need people in the sport, not just MMA. He does all sports. We need him on to help to realise.
It's not all running and weights.
Yeah, but it's not all running and weights, but it's also not a stigma. There shouldn't be a stigma behind it. There shouldn't be a stigma behind asking someone to help you out with nutrition. There shouldn't be a stigma behind asking someone to help you with your strength of your mind to help you in the fight. And that's why we do what we do from our end, because we want to help people. And even if we had a cutman on as well who talks about hand wrapping and stuff like that, and it's all little things like that. We think.
All the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it is. We need all the pieces, and that's what I think.
Well, and people can use this in life in general. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be a fighter. You know,
No.
it's good to have more self-confidence. It's good to step outside your comfort zone every now and again because
Yeah.
it does make
Absolutely.
you tougher. You know, it's good to get your
You find
diet,
yourself.
your diet right,
Yeah.
and you know, it's definitely good to get your diet right.
It does help.
And do you know what? It doesn't have to be all crap. You know,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
have to be all
Celery.
shit tasting.
Your celery.
Yeah. For instance,
No.
celery. I can't stand celery.
But no.
Not at all. Not at all. Yep.
Yeah,
No,
but-
I agree 100%. And that's what's frustrating is because most of the ones who have the voice, the ones that we are listening to, are the ones that are infecting us, actually. You know, and you need all the pieces, and people should listen more and should read more, but have an open mind. Like you said, you got to step outside your comfort zone and don't be so narrow-minded, so close-minded. You know, evolution is, change is the only constant, and people need to adapt to it.
Yeah, like I say, go and sleep in the woods once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. See how many people would actually be able to deal with that.
Yeah, we
I was out,
we know a few.
I was out on the weekend, and I was saying to John before. I said it was the windiest conditions I've ever been in. You know,
Yeah.
I said, but it was still fun.
It's still fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it goes right back to perception. You know, people look at that and they're like, "Oh, you're crazy, go in the woods." And I'm like, there's nothing better than nature. You can learn so much from nature.
Yeah.
But, it's people's perception of everything.
Yeah,
And
the
they need to
outdoors is
start
a great
changing
thing.
it, actually.
It's good to be uncomfortable now and again. I think
it's not even uncomfortable. It's a great place to get a perspective on things.
I love it.
Oh,
I feel more alive, and do you know what? I don't think about my bad legs when I'm out camping.
unless I point and mention them and take them out.
Until my feet get cold. Yeah.
That's what you need. You need a combination of both. You need those moments in the woods where you're not thinking about everything bad or anything bad, and then you need that friend to remind you, "Hey, buddy, you still have some issues." That's the beauty of life.
I'm happy to do
No,
that.
I don't take him.
I was going to say it's probably a better idea to just leave him at home, but
Oh, it's
Yeah.
all right. I'll just call him up and it's all right. I just send him messages, abuse. I honestly,
Look,
I do it all the time.
the worst one I got was what was it where you phoned me up and told me some fight results.
Yeah.
You said something about, you're watching the fights, and I said, no, I've got no internet here, and you went, oh, so and so just got knocked out.
I've got to help him out in some way.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, thanks for that. I wasn't going to watch that when I got home, Hey ho.
Gotta have a lot of love. But look, we've kept you on a long time, which has been amazing. I have to say,
Yeah, very enjoyable and educational.
I have to say, it's been a pleasure talking. But we are going to let you get going because we don't want to keep you tied down all day as much as we'd love to. But before you go, I think it's vital that you spoke here now, but how can people maybe access to talk to you privately, maybe look to get, like you say, some advice and just help, and just in general, just kind of get some life lessons on looking after their physical well-being?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank you guys. I mean, you guys are awesome, man. I love being on here and just talking with you guys. You guys are amazing.
Oh,
and
thank you.
you can find me on social media. My Instagram is at Loutrition, LOUTRITION. My Twitter is at Lou_Trition. Facebook, Loutrition, and I do also own a supplement company that is Nutrition, NUtrition.com. And what I do with all that stuff is I want to put up as much free advice, answer any questions. My Instagram is loaded with facts and logic, and I just try to put stuff up there that people can learn from. And you could also, email me direct at loutrition@gmail.com. Those are the best places to find me at.
We'll put all this information up, ladies and gentlemen, on our Facebook page, as we usually do for everyone. And once again, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming on and talking to us. It really was great, honestly. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Really.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. And as always, guys, anytime I do an interview or anything like that, please, if you want to, reach out to me, I'll definitely be more than happy to take a look at your meal plans, especially if you're fighting. Whatever the case may be, man, I want to offer my services to you guys, and if I can help out in any way, shape, or form, contact me off the air, and I'll be more than happy to help you guys. And please check out my man Aljamain Sterling, December 10th. You're about to see a whole different animal in that cage, man.
I'll be there in person. I'm flying out for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure my schedule works, but I also, I'm trying to get out there as well. So if I am, we'll definitely link up. But if you guys aren't out there, man, tune in because you're gonna see something amazing. He really is such a gifted athlete, man, and he deserves all the credit in the world.
That's why we got him on the podcast, because we believe that he is
Oh yeah.
one of
we have
the
faith in him.
top bantamweights in the world, and there should be a lot more emphasis on him. That's why we got him on.
It's crazy that there's not, but you want to know something? I'm telling you right now, and I give him all the credit in the world. You know, he's just a machine. I think he's a guy who, you know, we all need coaches and we all need help, but you know what? That man, he's self-made, he's self-built. You know, I don't think it mattered if he had coaches me or not. He's just a machine, and with us, it's just going to make it even better. So he's going to make a lot of noise, man. I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, we can't wait.
We can't wait either. Can't wait for the 10th, and I'm sure you're going to have a great time watching him fight as well and bringing back the W.
Absolutely, definitely.